You don't feel sick. You wake up, go about your day, laugh, eat, scroll your phone, everything feels normal. Then one day, almost casually, you check your blood pressure. And in a few seconds, your reality shifts. Your blood pressure is high. No warning. No symptoms. No pain. Just a number, quietly telling you something is wrong. And just like that, you're placed into a category that often comes with medication, restrictions, and a lifelong label. But here's the part that should make you pause. How can something so serious feel completely invisible? Most people don't question it. They accept it. They follow instructions. Reduce salt. Eat less processed food. Take this medication. And to be fair, those recommendations aren't random. They're based on real observations. So you adjust. You become more careful. You start reading labels, avoiding certain foods, trying to do the right thing. But then something frustrating happens. Weeks pass, sometimes months. And when you check again, the numbers haven't improved the way you expected. Maybe they dropped slightly. Maybe they didn't move at all. Or worse, maybe they went back up. And that's when the confusion begins. Because now, you're doing what you were told, but your body isn't responding the way it's supposed to. So you start asking yourself, am I missing something? Am I doing this wrong? Or is there something no one has explained to me yet? Here's where things get uncomfortable. Because the truth is, most people are trying to solve high blood pressure from the surface, when the real issue is happening beneath it. Think about it like this. If you walk into a room and see water on the floor, your first instinct is to wipe it. And that makes sense. But what if the water keeps coming back? At some point, you stop wiping, and you start looking for the source. A leaking pipe, a broken valve, something deeper that's causing the surface problem. Now imagine doing the opposite. Imagine wiping the floor every single day, while completely ignoring the leak. That's what most people are doing with their blood pressure. They're managing the visible results without fully understanding the hidden cause. And here's the part that almost nobody explains clearly. High blood pressure is not just something that happens. It doesn't randomly appear in your body like a glitch. It develops. It builds. It evolves over time. Quietly, gradually, layer by layer. And by the time you notice it, it's already been forming for months, sometimes years. So the real question is not, how do I lower my blood pressure quickly? The real question is, what has been happening inside my body long before this number showed up? Because once you start asking that question, everything changes. You begin to realize that this isn't just about one habit, or one type of food, or one mistake. It's about patterns. Daily patterns, repeated behaviors, small things that seem harmless on their own, but powerful when combined. And this is where most people get stuck. They're looking for one cause, one thing to blame, one thing to fix. But your body doesn't work that way. Your body is a system. And systems don't break because of one failure. They shift because of multiple pressures acting together. So if high blood pressure is not just about one thing, if it's not just about salt, if it's not just about stress, if it's not just about age, then what is it really about? What is your body actually responding to? What is it trying to compensate for? And more importantly, why does it choose to raise pressure instead of fixing the problem another way? Because once you understand that, you stop guessing, you stop chasing quick fixes, and you start seeing the full picture. In the next part, we're going to break something down that most people never think about: why your body might actually be increasing pressure on purpose, and how that completely changes the way you approach this. Because what you're about to realize is this: your body is not working against you. It's responding to something. And once you see what that something is, you'll never look at blood pressure the same way again. Let's start with a question that might sound strange at first. What if your blood pressure is not the problem, but a solution your body is using? Not a perfect solution. Not an ideal one. But a necessary one. Because your body doesn't randomly create problems. It adapts. It adjusts. It compensates. Every single time something is off internally, your body doesn't panic. It responds. So when pressure goes up, the real question isn't, how do I stop this? The real question is, what is my body trying to compensate for? To understand this properly, you need to think in terms of flow, not just pressure. Imagine water moving through a pipe. If the pipe is wide, clean, and flexible, water flows easily. No resistance. No stress. But now imagine something changes. The pipe becomes narrower, or stiffer, or slightly blocked. What happens? The water doesn't stop. Instead, the pressure increases to push it through. That's not a malfunction. That's physics. Now apply that same idea to your body. Your blood vessels are not rigid tubes. They are living, dynamic structures. They expand. They contract. They respond to signals. And most importantly, they are designed to keep blood moving efficiently. So if something interferes with that movement, your body has two options. Fix the obstruction immediately. Increase pressure to maintain flow. And here's the reality. Most of the time, your body chooses the second option first, because it's faster. It's more reliable. And it keeps you functioning in the moment. Think about what would happen if your body didn't compensate. If blood flow dropped, your brain wouldn't get enough oxygen. Your organs would suffer. Your energy would crash. So instead of letting that happen, your body raises pressure to protect you. In other words, high blood pressure is often a survival strategy. It's your body saying, something is making circulation harder, so I'm going to push harder. That's a completely different way of looking at it. Because now, pressure is not the enemy. It's the signal. So what creates this resistance in the first place? What makes your body feel like it needs to push harder? This is where things get deeper. Because the resistance is rarely obvious. It's not like a physical blockage you can see. It's functional, subtle, gradual, and it builds over time. Here are a few ways this resistance develops. Blood vessels becoming less flexible. Internal signals becoming less efficient. Fluid balance shifting in the wrong direction. The nervous system staying slightly activated. Each of these on its own might not seem like a big deal, but together, they change how your entire system behaves. And slowly, your body starts relying on pressure, more and more. Let's zoom in on one of the most important pieces. Flexibility. Healthy blood vessels are flexible. They expand when needed. They relax when needed. They adjust constantly. But when that flexibility starts to decline, everything becomes harder. Blood doesn't move as smoothly. Your system loses efficiency. And your body has to compensate. Now here's the key insight. Loss of flexibility doesn't feel like anything. You don't wake up and think, my blood vessels feel stiff today. It happens silently, and that's why it goes unnoticed. Until pressure becomes the only way your body can maintain flow. Your body is built for efficiency. Everything is designed to work with minimal effort. But when internal systems become less efficient, your body has to work harder to achieve the same result. This is where pressure comes in again. Instead of fixing the inefficiency immediately, your body compensates. It increases force. It pushes harder. And over time, that increased effort becomes your baseline. Not because it's ideal, but because it's necessary. Here's something most people underestimate. Big problems rarely start big. They start small. Almost invisible. A slight reduction in flexibility. A small shift in internal balance. A minor disruption in signaling. Individually, they don't seem like much. But your body doesn't experience them individually. It experiences them collectively. So when multiple small inefficiencies stack together, they create a system that requires more force to function. And that force shows up as elevated pressure. Now think about what happens when we focus only on lowering pressure. We're essentially reducing the force, without addressing the resistance. It's like turning down the water pressure in a clogged pipe. Yes, the pressure drops, but the underlying issue? Still there. And sometimes, flow becomes even worse. This is why some people feel tired, dizzy, low energy, when pressure drops too quickly, because the body was relying on that pressure to maintain function. This is the turning point, the moment where everything clicks. High blood pressure is not just something to eliminate, it's something to understand, because it tells you there is resistance somewhere in your system. There is inefficiency somewhere in your system. There is imbalance somewhere in your system. And until that is addressed, your body will continue to compensate. So instead of asking, how do I force my blood pressure down? Start asking, what is making my body work harder than it should? Because when you remove the need for compensation, the compensation naturally disappears. Not instantly, but progressively. And more importantly, sustainably. Now that you understand that pressure is a response, the next question becomes even more important. What exactly is creating that resistance inside your body? Because this is where we move from theory into the real hidden drivers that most people never connect. And the first one we're going to uncover is something incredibly common. Something that affects millions of people daily, but almost no one links directly to blood pressure. And once you see it, you'll realize why so many people are stuck in the same cycle. Now that you understand your body raises pressure as a response, let's talk about one of the most common reasons it needs to do that. And here's the surprising part. You don't feel it. There's no pain, no obvious symptom, no clear warning sign, but it's happening every single day for millions of people. It's what I call the constant internal pressure signal. A signal that quietly tells your body, hold on to more, don't let go, stay ready. And when that signal stays active for too long, everything begins to change. Your body doesn't just react to what you do occasionally. It responds to what you do consistently. Every meal, every snack, every pattern, every habit, all of it sends signals. And your body is always asking one question. Is this environment stable, or do I need to prepare for stress? Now here's where things get interesting. In today's world, many people are constantly sending the same signal, over and over again, without realizing it. Imagine your body has two main modes: release mode, where it lets go, relaxes, balances; retention mode, where it holds on, stores, prepares. Both are necessary, but they're supposed to alternate. Now imagine being stuck in retention mode. Not fully, but just enough. Just enough that your body starts to hold on to more fluid, become less efficient at clearing excess, maintain a slightly elevated internal state. Not dramatic, but persistent. And persistence is what turns a small shift into a chronic condition. Let's bring this into real life. Think about a typical day. You wake up, maybe you skip breakfast, or maybe you eat something quick, then a snack, then another meal, then something sweet, then a drink, then something light in the evening. Now here's the key point. Your body is constantly receiving input, constantly processing, constantly reacting. And when input becomes frequent and refined, your internal signals don't get a chance to reset. So instead of cycling between store and release, you stay in a mild version of store mode all day, every day. Now let's connect this back to pressure. When your body stays in this hold-on state, it becomes more likely to retain fluid. It becomes less responsive to natural balance signals. It starts prioritizing stability over flexibility. And remember what we talked about earlier. When your system becomes less flexible, pressure increases to maintain flow. So this isn't random, it's connected. Your body is adapting to the signals you're giving it. Here's why this is so dangerous. It doesn't feel urgent. There's no sharp pain, no immediate consequence. You can live like this for years, without noticing anything obvious. And during that time, your body is quietly adjusting, adapting, compensating, until one day, it shows up as a number that seems to come out of nowhere, but was actually building the entire time. Your body has something called a baseline, a normal state it tries to maintain, but that baseline is not fixed. It adapts. So when your system is exposed to constant signals, your baseline shifts. Slightly higher pressure becomes normal, then slightly higher than that becomes normal. And over time, your body stops trying to return to the original state, because it believes the new state is necessary. This is where many people get trapped, because when they finally try to fix things, they focus on what's obvious: cutting salt, drinking more water, taking medication, but they don't address the underlying signal that's keeping the system in retention mode. So even when they try to improve, their body is still receiving the same message: stay ready, hold on, don't release. And as long as that message continues, the compensation continues. Here's the shift that changes everything. You stop focusing only on what you remove, and start focusing on what you reset. Because your body doesn't just need less stress, it needs periods of recovery. Moments where it can switch modes. Moments where it can release instead of retain, relax instead of prepare, reset instead of accumulate. And when those moments start happening consistently, your system begins to change. When that internal signal finally shifts, something powerful happens. Your body no longer feels the need to hold on. It becomes more efficient, more responsive, more balanced. And gradually, the need for compensation reduces. Not because you forced it, but because you removed the reason for it. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Because this pressure signal doesn't act alone. There's another hidden factor working alongside it. One that directly affects how flexible or stiff your system becomes. And this one is even more overlooked, because it's not about what you eat too much of. It's about what your body doesn't have enough of. And once you understand this next piece, you'll start to see why your system behaves the way it does. Up to this point, we've talked about signals. We've talked about pressure as compensation. We've talked about how your body responds to patterns. But now we need to look at something just as important. Not what's overwhelming your system, but what's missing from it. Because your body doesn't just rely on removing stress. It relies on having the right tools to handle that stress. And when those tools are missing, everything becomes harder, less efficient, less stable. Think of your body like a system that constantly adjusts itself. Tightening when needed, relaxing when needed, balancing when needed. But all of that requires support. Internal support. The kind that allows your body to relax blood vessels, maintain proper signaling, regulate fluid balance, stay responsive instead of reactive. Now here's the key insight. When that support is lacking, your body doesn't stop functioning. It adapts, it compensates. And once again, pressure becomes the backup plan. Let's go back to something we mentioned earlier: flexibility. Your blood vessels need to stay flexible to maintain smooth flow. But flexibility doesn't happen automatically. It depends on internal conditions. If your body doesn't have what it needs to maintain that flexibility, vessels begin to behave differently. They become less responsive, slower to relax, more prone to staying slightly constricted. And when that happens, flow becomes less efficient. So your body compensates by increasing pressure. Now let's connect this to everyday life. Most modern diets are built around convenience. Refined foods, processed options, quick energy. And while these foods provide calories, they often lack depth. They lack the internal support your body needs to regulate itself properly. So what happens? Your body gets energy, but not enough support to use that energy efficiently. It's like fueling a machine without maintaining it. It still runs, but not smoothly. And over time, that lack of support starts to show up in subtle ways. This is where things become gradual and dangerous. Because nothing feels broken, you still function, you still go about your day, but internally, your system is becoming less efficient. Relaxation becomes slower, recovery becomes weaker, balance becomes harder to maintain. And when balance becomes harder, compensation becomes more frequent. Which brings us back to pressure. Here's something most people don't realize. The factors we've discussed don't work separately. They combine. On one side, you have signals telling your body to hold on. On the other side, you have a lack of support to properly regulate that signal. So now your body is receiving stress signals, lacking the tools to respond efficiently. That combination is powerful because it creates a system that is both overstimulated and undersupported. And in that state, pressure becomes almost inevitable. When your system lacks support, it becomes more sensitive, more reactive, less stable. Small triggers create bigger responses. Minor imbalances create noticeable shifts. And instead of adjusting smoothly, your body starts overcompensating. That's when you move from temporary elevation to consistent elevation, from occasional imbalance to chronic imbalance. This is where a lot of advice falls short, because it focuses heavily on restriction. Remove this. Avoid that. Cut this out. And while that can help, it's only half the equation. Because removing stress without adding support still leaves your system incomplete. Your body doesn't just need fewer problems. It needs better resources. Here's the good news. Your body already knows how to regulate itself. It already knows how to balance pressure. It already knows how to maintain flow. But it needs the right environment to do that. When support is restored, your system becomes more flexible, more responsive, more efficient. And when that happens, your body doesn't need to rely on pressure as much, because it can finally manage flow the way it was designed to. Now let's bring everything together. You've seen how signals can push your body into retention mode. Lack of support reduces your ability to regulate. Loss of flexibility increases resistance. Resistance leads to compensation. These are not separate issues. They are connected. And when multiple factors align in the wrong direction, your body adapts accordingly. But here's the powerful part. The same principle works in reverse. When you begin to reduce constant stress signals, restore internal support, improve flexibility, allow recovery, your system begins to shift back, gradually, naturally, and most importantly, sustainably. At this point, you can start to see the full picture. High blood pressure is not just about one habit, not just about one nutrient, not just about one mistake. It's about how your entire system is functioning. And in the final part, we're going to bring this all together into one clear understanding, so you know exactly how to think about this moving forward, without confusion, without guesswork, and without chasing the wrong solution.